Hi, I'm Melvyn, and welcome to the Creative Influencer Show. And in today's episode, we're going to be taking a detached approach to life. Hello, and welcome to the Creative Influencers Show. My name is Melvyn, and thank you so much for your downloads. And in today's episode 007, we are going to looking at why adopting a detached approach to life can be good for you. But before we go into today's episode, I'd like to tell you a little story about myself. And what you see here is the pictures, are the pictures of three cats. And these were the three cats that we had before we had kids. So I'd like to tell you a little story about these three cats and their different characteristics here. Now, the top left box, the cat with the red bandana, her name is Chomel. And so she is the ever inquisitive one and the feisty cat. And she is the one who make things happen. She'll be the one who will go around the house, explore everything and kind of drag it out and, sometimes to our dismay. And just below her, you will see this Persian-looking cat, and his name is Bill. Bill likes to tag along Chomel, waiting to see what happens, and so he's the one who is always waiting for things to happen. So that's Bill. And at the top right, you see that white, good-looking cat. His name is T-Bot. Now, T-Bot, as my wife and I think, is probably the most reactive cat in the world. He is the one who always walk around, and sometimes when things happen, he would just be so shocked. And we always say that he is the one who wonder what happened. And that's the story of my three cats. But if you look at the characteristics itself, we always say that there are three types of people in the world. Those that wait for things to happen, those that make things happen, and those that wonder what happened. Now, the question for you is, which of these describes you most? All right, which of these describe you most? So some of us wait for things to happen. We tend to live life by default. Those of us who make things happen are the ones that live life by design. So the question is, do you want to live life by design? And I found a very interesting book by Ayse Birsel. She wrote her book. It's called Design the Life You Love. And in the book, there is a very interesting concept, and the concept is called Deconstruction, Reconstruction. Now, what it says here is that, and to quote directly from the book, she says that deconstructing helps us break our preconceptions so we can see the same things from a whole new perspective. So one of the examples that she gave was when she was asked to redesign a toilet seat. And so when she was asked to redesign a toilet seat, one of the first things she did was to deconstruct toilet seat. So when you recognize that the term toilet seat actually has got two terms, toilet and seat, and then you ask yourself, well, what are some of the characteristics of a good seat? And in her explanations, she mentioned that, well, a seat needs to be comfortable, and that's how she went on to design one of the most comfortable toilet seats in the world. That's really something that I would want to try, because sometimes, sitting there, it's not quite comfortable, especially when you're using toilets outdoors. Now, before we go into sanitation let's move on to the next part. Next part is reconstruct. So now, once you have deconstructed something, it allows you to see things from a whole new perspective. And when you shift that perspective, then you reconstruct it. So, for example, if you are looking at your life, one of the first things you want to do when you deconstruct your life is to look at your life in various parts. For example, you may look at one part which is your family, another part which is how you manage your time, another part could be how you do your work. And once you have seen all these different parts, once you have deconstructed these different parts, and then it's time for you to embrace a whole new paradigm or a whole new perspective. And with this whole new perspective, you kind of reconstruct them. So an example I'll give you is, for instance, when I look at my life before and after I became a parent. Before I became a parent, when I look at time, when I look at money, when I look at work, the whole perspective about life was centered around me. And so it was about how I can best use of my time, how can I best use my time and my talents to do my work. But when I became a parent and I reconstruct my life again, looking at time would be how could I manage my time in such a way that I will then still be able to have quality time with my family. So when you look at deconstructing and reconstructing, the key thing here is not about the deconstructing or reconstructing, but the key thing here is to embrace a new perspective. And when you embrace that new perspective and when you want to put your life together, this is where you take your life to a whole new level. Okay? Now, so how do we deconstruct our life? So what we want to do, what I like to do here is to kind of bring us back to 2 episodes ago where we talked about Tim Brown's 3 methods of going into deep dive. And his 3 methods were basically talking about insight, observation, and empathy. So what are insights? Insights basically is talking about looking at the existing life and trying to see what you are doing right and what you're doing wrong. So that's insight. Observation is different from insight in that observation, what you are looking out for is looking at what you are not doing. So for example, when you look at your life, you are not just looking at what are you doing on a day-to-day basis and how you can optimize that, but really what you want to look at is what you are not doing. Is there something that you're not doing? Are there certain good habits or effective habits that you need to put in place, and are there some bad habits that you need to replace them, for example? And the third one is empathy. That's Tim Brown's third method. But in today's episode, we're going to turn empathy the other way around. So instead of putting yourself in the shoes of the end user, which is yourself, what we're going to do here is we're going to switch empathy to detachment. Now, what the detached approach is actually not a new approach. The detached approach is borrowed from NLP, or Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Now, what it means is that instead of looking at life from your own perspective, now you look at life from a third-party perspective. So imagine if you have a camera and you kind of follow yourself everywhere you go on a 24/7, 365 days basis. You have this camera that follows you everywhere you go. And at the end of it, what you do is you sit down and watch the entire footage. Now, when you watch the entire footage, you are looking at it from a third-party perspective. And when you look at it from the third-party perspective, that's where you want to embrace that two perspective. One is looking at it through insights. The other one is looking at it through observation. So insights is basically saying that when you view the footage, you look at what you're doing. And observation is when you look at the footage, you look at what you are not doing. And so this brings me back to June 2007. That was when I told my wife I need to take a 3-day personal retreat. And so what I did was I took a 3-day personal retreat to this beautiful resort island near Singapore. And that 3-day personal retreat was the start of my next lap in terms of my entrepreneurial journey. So what happened was right at the point in time when I took the retreat, I have been a consultant for 5 years. And what I do literally on a day-to-day basis was that I will walk into my client's organization and I would identify problems and then come up with recommendations on how they could solve those problems. So this is pretty much what most consultants do. Yeah, we walk into our client's organization, we ask them certain questions, and we try to identify problems from a detached point of view, from a third-party point of view, from a consultant's point of view, and then from there we kind of recommend solution. And sometimes, after we recommend the solution and we tell them, the clients might sometimes go away thinking, wow, it was so profound, we didn't see it. Or sometimes it could even be this way. They could say that, well, it was always there, but sometimes we really need a third eye to point it out to us. And so what happened was, up until that time, I was doing that on a day-to-day basis. But I was looking at my client's organization. I wasn't looking at my own life. Now, at the point in time, I was just basically furiously working, building up this training and consulting firm to where we are now. And I wasn't paying enough attention to my own life, let alone, my relationship with my wife, for example. And so at that point in time, I say that I need to take a personal retreat. And one of the first things I did was to turn that consultant's point of view on myself. So I realized that while I've been helping clients design their organization to be more effective, I wasn't doing the same thing to my life. So what I want to do is I want to turn the consultant's point of view on myself, and I want to see how I could maximize my own resources, my own talent, my own gifts, as well as how can I multiply my talents, my resources, and my gifts. So it was a two-pronged thing. At one prong is I wanted to take a look at what my life is from a detached point of view, and the other prong is how can I bring it to the next level. And so what happened after that was very interesting, because during the process itself, I noticed that some of the things I was doing, so that this is the insight part. So one of the things I was doing was, because I was so ambitious and I was really working, feverishly. So I was giving myself just enough time. Whenever I planned something, I would just give myself enough time. So for example, I would just give myself enough time to get up, shower, grab a quick bite, and head out the door. And when I re-look at this process from a third-party perspective, from a consultant point of view, from a detached point of view, I noticed that this process actually gave me very little slack. And as a result of having to deal with very little slack itself, I'm almost always pressed for time. I'm almost always rushing. And sometimes even a minute late would make a whole world of differences. Yeah, so just 1 minute late sometime getting into traffic, you will be bogged down with the rush hour traffic. But if I had just given myself 2 or maybe even 5 minutes more, and make that adjustment, I wouldn't be rushing, and at the same time, I would be able to get into the highway without being bogged down or being clogged up by the rush hour traffic. And so when I look at this, I realized that one of the things that I need to do was to get up early, or at least get up earlier. So that was looking at the process, looking at insights, looking at what I'm doing and how I could rectify some of those areas. Now, the interesting thing when you look at it from a detached point of view is that you also look at it from what you are not doing. So when I look at when I kind of map out my life and kind of review it, I realized that some of the things that I wasn't doing was I was not exercising enough. I was not giving myself sufficient time. I wasn't giving myself sufficient time to kind of exercise and to kind of go out there and do some workout. Now, what I resort to was becoming a weekend warrior, where I would, work the full 5 days during the week, and then during the weekend, I would go out there and take out a full hour exercise. I would really run my guts out. And what happens is that at the end of it, I'll feel all these aches and pains during the week, and then I kind of repeat the process again. Now, one of the days, what happened was after straining myself over the weekend, I actually had an injury, and because of that injury, I was having problem kind of walking. And so what I saw was that while I was exercising, I was not exercising enough, and so that kind of led me to make a shift. And right after that, and after some adjustments, I'll be honest, after some adjustments, eventually, after several years, I was able to pick myself up and make myself go out there to run at least 6 times a week, between 15 to 20 minutes each time. And so that has become not just a routine, but that has become a part of life for me. In fact, I would even dare say that I am now addicted to running and to work out almost every single day of my life. So there you have it. By doing so, I was able to kind of maximize my life, take my life to the fullest, and so that I am knowing that every minute of it, I am using my time, my energy, my talent, and my resources in the best way possible. Well, take note, that doesn't mean that every single minute of my waking hour, I am doing something, I'm producing something. Sometimes that could just mean that I'm taking that time off, or rather I'm taking that time and just being with myself, not doing anything, just being with myself, for example. Or I'm taking that time off just to be with my family, for example. Okay, so that's the maximizing part. Now, in future episodes, we're going to be talking about the multiplying part. So how in this process itself, after you have kind of deconstruct and reconstruct your life, the next phase is to look at maximizing it and as well as multiplying it. So in future episodes, we're looking at how we can multiply your gifts, your talents, your time, your resources, so that it kind of really make your life in terms of personal as well as professional life grow exponentially. Okay, and so there you have it. Become your own consultant, help yourself, take a detached approach, watch and reflect what you are doing, but more importantly, notice what you are not doing. And once you do that, you will be able to start designing the life you want. Okay, and that's all from me this week. My name is Melvyn, and thank you so much for being part of the Creative Influencer Show. We've been getting new signups each week, so if you have not, please join the Creative Influencers community at this URL, melvyn.me, melvyn.me/newsletter. And so once you head on down there, you will be able to join the Creative Influencers community. At the same time, until the end of this month, you will also receive a copy of Design and Live the Life You Want, which is a manifesto that I've written based on my own experience and all consolidation of the research that I've done. So I understand that at this point in time when I'm recording this is July 30th. And so when this episode goes out, we might go into August already. So what I would like to do is I'm going to leave this manifesto for you to pick up until the end of August. So you have up until the end of August to pick it up, but don't wait, because your life is not going to wait for you. So live life by design. And once again, this is Melvyn. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you again in the next episode. Bye bye.